Book of Heaven, Volume 16, Part 9. January 23rd, 1924. Just as Jesus braided the creating fiat with his redeeming fiat, so does he want the third fiat to be braided with the creating and redeeming fiat. The humanity of Jesus is smaller than his eternal will. I was abandoning all of myself in the holy will of God, and I thought to myself, the fiat formed the whole universe, and in the fiat, the divinity made display of its love toward man, exposing it in each created thing, in such a way that, impressed in each created thing, one can see that fiat, that with such great mastery, power, and harmony, was released from the divine bosom toward the creature. The fiat formed the redemption, so much so that in each thing that the eternal Word did, the fiat is present, and surrounding them like a crown, it gives them life. So the creating fiat and the redeeming fiat are braided together, and one echoes within the other, forming one single fiat. As there is no created act that my sweet Jesus did not braid with the requital of his fiat. Now, my adored Jesus has told me many times that the third fiat is needed, so that the works of creation and redemption may be completed. So how shall this be done? Who shall form so many fiats as to braid the creating fiat and the redeeming fiat? While I was thinking of this, my lovable Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, if the Supreme Majesty released so much love toward mankind in all the things created by his omnipotent fiat, it was right that I, his son, in his same fiat, would do as many acts to requite him for his love, braiding his fiat with mine, so that another fiat, human and divine, might rise from the earth to exchange the kiss with his fiat, be braided with it, and substitute for the return of love of all creatures. Until I came upon earth, the fiat that was spread throughout all creation was alone. But as I came, it was no longer alone. Indeed, my first task was that of forming as many acts in the eternal fiat, for as many as my Father had done in creation. So, with my fiat, the creating fiat had its sweet and harmonious company. Now, this fiat does not want to remain in two. It wants the third fiat. It wants to be in three. And this third fiat, it is you who shall do. This is why many times I have drawn you outside of yourself, and I have placed you within that very creating and redeeming fiat, so that you might make your flight, and as you would braid your fiat with ours, the creating and redeeming fiat might be braided by the third fiat, your own. The more you operate in our fiat, the sooner you shall reach the way of our fiat. And just as in the fiat of creation, many prodigious and beautiful things, the whole universe came out of us, and the fiat of redemption substituted for all the acts of creatures, taking its lost child by the hand to lead him back into the bosom of his celestial Father. So shall the third fiat, once it has done its course, let its effects be seen, that my will be known and loved, and take its dominion, in order to have its kingdom upon earth. Each additional act of yours that you shall braid with our fiat shall be a human kiss, that you shall have our fiat be given, a greater bond that you shall form between the divine will and the human will, in such a way that, placed in accord, it may have no reluctance to making itself known and taking its royal dominion. Everything is in making itself known. The rest shall come by itself. This is why many times I have recommended to you that you omit to write nothing of what regards my will, because knowledge is the way, and its light serves as trumpet to call those who are listening, to make itself heard. And the more the trumpet sounds, and it sounds more for as many more knowledges as it has to be manifested, the more people shall rush up. Knowledge takes the attitude now of pulpit, now of teacher, now of compassionate father and excessive lover. In sum, it has all the ways in its power in order to enter the hearts, to conquer them, and to triumph in everything. And the more knowledges it contains, the more ways it has in its power. Almost confounded by what Jesus was telling me, I said, "My sweet love, you know how miserable I am, and in what state I find myself. Therefore I feel it is impossible for me that with my acts I may reach the same way as that of the creating fiat and of the redeeming fiat." And Jesus, "So, our fiat does not contain all the power it wants? If it did it in creation and in redemption, how can it not be able to do it in you? What it takes is your will, and I shall impress my fiat in yours, just as I impressed my divine fiat in the will of my humanity. So we shall follow the same way. My will can do anything. In my all-seeingness, it shall make present to you the acts of creation and redemption, and you, with ease, with your acts, shall braid the third fiat to our fiat. Aren't you happy? And I, in seeing that my adored Jesus, as he was speaking about his will, was disappearing from me, remaining as though eclipsed within an immense light, just as when the sun makes the stars disappear, eclipsing them within its light, said, "Jesus, my life, do not speak to me about your will, because then you eclipse yourself within its light, and I lose you, and remain alone without you. How can it be that your will makes me lose my life, my all?" And Jesus added, "My daughter, my humanity is smaller than my eternal will. It has its boundaries, its limits, and therefore, as my endless will draws near you with its knowledges, my humanity is lost within its light, and as though eclipsed. This is why you do not see me, but I remain always in you, and I enjoy, as I see the little newborn of my will eclipsed within the same light as my humanity. So we are together, but because our sight is dazzled by the blazing light of the Supreme Volition, we cannot see each other." February 2nd, 1924. Abandonment in God are the wings in order to fly together with the divine will. What eternity is. I felt very oppressed, because of the privation of my sweet Jesus, and because of other reasons, which it is not necessary to put on paper. And my beloved Jesus, moving in my interior, and pressing me to himself to give me strength, for I felt I was succumbing, told me, "My daughter, my will is life and motion of everything. But do you know who follows its motion and takes flight in my eternal volition, in such a way as to make her round, as it does in the sphere of eternity, be wherever it is, and do whatever it does? The soul who is completely abandoned in my holy will. Abandonment are the wings in order to fly together with my will. As abandonment ceases, she loses the flight and the wings are destroyed. So everyone feels the motion, the life of my will, because there is no motion that does not come from me. But they remain at the point in which they are. Only the one who has the wings of the abandonment in me and follows the same course as my will hovers over everything, both in heaven and on earth, enters into the sphere of eternity, makes her round in the midst of the three divine persons, penetrates into their most intimate hiding places, and is aware of their secrets and of their beatitudes. It happens as to an engine that has the primary wheel in the center, and many other small wheels around it, which are fixed. As the primary wheel moves, all receive motion, but they never arrive at touching the primary wheel, nor do they know anything of what it does, and of the goods it contains. But there is another small wheel, which is not fixed, and by means of a mechanism, it makes its round continuously across all the small wheels, to then find itself in each motion of the primary wheel, and begin making its round again. Now, this itinerant little wheel knows what is there in the primary wheel, and takes part in the goods it contains. Now, the primary wheel is my will. The small wheels that are fixed are the souls who are abandoned to themselves, that renders them immobilized in good. The itinerant little wheel is the soul who lives in my will, and the mechanism is the complete abandonment in me. So, each lack of abandonment in me is a round that you lose in the sphere of eternity. If you knew what it means to lose an eternal round. On hearing this, I said, "But tell me, my love, what does eternity mean? And what is this eternal round?" And Jesus added, "My daughter, eternity is an immense circle, such that one cannot know either where it begins or where it ends. In this circle there is God, without beginning and without end, and there he possesses infinite happiness, beatitude, joys, riches, beauty, and so forth. At each divine motion that never ceases, he issues new happiness, new beauties, new beatitudes, and so forth, from this circle of eternity. But this new act is an act that is never interrupted, though one is different from the other, distinct among themselves. Our contentments are always new. Our beatitudes are such and so many, that while we are enjoying one, another surprises us. And it is always so, and they never end. They are eternal, immense, just as we are. And what is eternal has the virtue of making ever new things arise. What is old, things that are repeated, do not exist in what is eternal. But do you know who it is that, in heaven, shares more in this newness that is never exhausted? The one who has practiced more good on earth. This good shall be like the seed that shall bring her the knowledges of our beatitudes, joys, beauty, love, goodness, and so forth. And depending on the good that the soul has practiced on earth, that is in some harmony with our varied beauties, she shall come closer to us, and shall fill herself in large gulps with that beatitude whose seed she contains, to the point of overflowing outside. She shall share in everything that the circle of eternity contains. She shall be filled with it, in place of the seeds acquired on earth. It shall happen, as to one who has learned music, a job, or a science. When music is played, many listen and enjoy, but who understands? Who feels all those notes of joy or of sorrow penetrate into his intelligence and descend into his heart? Who feels as though being filled, and seeing in act the scenes which that music expresses? The one who has studied, the one who has worked hard to learn it. The others enjoy, but do not understand. Their enjoyment is in what sounds to their hearing, but their whole interior remains empty. The same for the one who has learned sciences. Who enjoys more, the one who has studied and has worn out his intelligence over books, over many scientific things, or one who has only looked at them? Indeed, the one who has studied can earn fair profits, can occupy distinct positions, while the other one can only enjoy with his sight, if he sees things related to sciences. The same with all other things. If this happens on earth, much more so in heaven, where justice weighs with the scales of love every little good act done by the creature, and on that good act places an unending happiness, joy, and beauty. Now, what shall it be for the soul who has lived in my will, in which all her acts remain with an eternal and divine seed? The circle of eternity shall pour itself upon her to such an extent that the whole celestial Jerusalem shall remain stupefied, and shall make new feasts, and shall receive new glory. February 5th, 1924. The soul cannot go out of the divine will, because her will is chained to the immutability of the divine. Effects of melancholy and of cheerfulness. I felt embittered because of the privation of my highest and only good. Even more, I felt that everything was over for me, and that he who is all my life was to come no more, and that all the past had been a game of fantasy. Oh, had it been in my power, I would have burned up all the writings, so that no trace might be left about me. My nature also felt the painful effects of this, but it is useless to say on paper what I went through, because the paper, too cruel, has not a word of comfort for me, and does not give me him whom I so much long for. On the contrary, by saying it, it makes my pains more bitter. Therefore I move on. So while I was in such a hard state, my always lovable Jesus made himself seen to me, with a stick of fire in his hand, telling me, "My daughter, where do you want me to beat you with this stick?" "I want to strike the world. Therefore I have come to you, to see how many blows you want to receive yourself, so as to give the rest to creatures. So tell me where you want me to beat you." And I, embittered as I was, said, "Beat me wherever you want to beat me. I don't want to know anything. I want nothing but your will." And he again, "I want to know from you where you want me to beat you." And I, "No, no, I shall never say that. I want there where you want." Jesus returned to ask me again, and seeing that I kept answering, "I want nothing but your will," he repeated, "So you don't even want to say where you want me to beat you?" Then, without saying anything else, he beat me. Those blows were painful, but since they were coming from the hands of Jesus, they infused in me life, strength, trust. After he struck me in such a way that I felt all beaten up, I clung to his neck, and drawing near his mouth, I tried to suckle. But as I did so, a most sweet liquid came into my mouth that cheered me all up. But this was not my will. Rather, I wanted his bitternesses, for he had so many in his most holy heart. Then I said to him, "My love, what a hard lot mine is. Your privation kills me. The fear that I might go out of your will crushes me. Tell me, where have I offended you? Why do you leave me? And even though you are with me now, it does not seem to me that you have come to stay with me like before, to be together, but in passing. Ah, how can I be without you, my life? You yourself tell me if I can." And while saying this, I burst into tears. And Jesus, pressing me to himself, told me, "Poor daughter of mine, poor daughter of mine, courage, your Jesus does not leave you, nor should you fear that you might go out of my will, because your will is chained to the immutability of mine. At most, it might be thoughts, impressions that you shall feel, but not true acts. In fact, since the immutability of my will is in you, when yours might be about to go out of mine, you shall feel the firmness, the strength of my immutability, and shall remain more chained to it. And besides, have you forgotten that I am not only in your heart, but in the whole world, and that from within you I direct the destiny of all creatures? What you feel is nothing other than the way the world is with me, and the pains they give me. Since I am in you, they are reflected upon you. Ah, my daughter, how much does the world give us to suffer? But come, courage. When I see that you can take no more, I leave everything and I come to be with my daughter, to cheer you and to cheer myself from the pains they give me." Having said this, he disappeared. I was left strengthened, yes, but with such melancholy as to feel myself dying. I felt as though soaked in a bath of bitternesses and afflictions, so much so that I did not feel the strength to say to Jesus, "Come." Then, while I was doing my usual prayers, my beloved Jesus came back, telling me, "My daughter, tell me, why are you so melancholic? See, I come from the midst of creatures, with tears in my eyes, my heart pierced, betrayed by many." And so I said to myself, "Let me go to my daughter, to my little newborn of my will, that she may dry my tears. With her acts that she has done in my will, she shall give me the love and everything that the others do not give me. I shall rest in her, and I shall cheer her with my presence. And you, instead, let yourself be found as so melancholic that I have to put my pains aside in order to relieve yours. Don't you know that cheerfulness for the soul is like fragrance for flowers, like condiment for foods, like the skin tone for people, like maturation for fruits, like the sun for plants? So with this melancholy, you have not let me found a fragrance that may cheer me, nor a tasty food, nor a mature fruit. Rather, you are all faded as to move me to pity. Poor daughter, courage, cling to me, do not fear." I clung to him. I would have wanted to burst into tears. I felt my voice being suffocated, but I plucked up strength. I repressed my tears, and I said to him, "Jesus, my love, my pains are nothing compared to yours. So let us think about your pains, if you don't want to add more bitternesses to mine. Let me dry your tears, and let me share in the pains of your heart." So he shared his pains with me, and while letting me see the grave evils present in the world, and those that shall come, he disappeared from me. February 8th, 1924. The way how little ones must be in the divine will, and what they must do in it. I was fusing all of myself in the holy divine will, and in doing this, as the littlest of all, I placed myself ahead of all generations, even before Adam and Eve were created, so that before they would sin, I may prepare ahead of them the act of reparation to the divine majesty, because in the divine will there is neither past nor future, but everything is present. And also so that, being little, I may approach the divine majesty in order to plead with him and do my little acts in his will, so as to cover all the acts of creatures with his divine will, and therefore be able to bind the human will that had split off with the divine, and make them one. Now, while I was about to do this, my annihilation, my misery and extreme littleness were such that I said to myself, instead of placing myself ahead of everyone in the most holy will, I should rather put myself behind everyone, even behind the last man who shall come. Since I am the most abject and the most miserable of all, it is the last place that befits me. Now, while I was doing this, my beloved Jesus came out from within my interior, and taking my hand told me, My little daughter, in my will, the little ones must be ahead of all. Even more, inside my womb. The one who must plead, repair, unify our will, not only with her own, but with those of all, must be near us, and so united with us as to receive all the reflections of the divinity in order to copy them within herself. She must have a thought that may be the thought of all, a word, a work, a step, a love that may be of all and for all. And since our will envelops everyone, may that thought of yours, that in our will be the thought of all, that act, that love, shine in each thought, word, and act of all generations, and in the power of our will, may they become antidotes, defenders, lovers, operators, and so forth. If you knew with what love our Celestial Father awaits you, and the joy, the contentment he feels in seeing you, so little, bring the whole creation onto his lap, to give him the requital of all. He feels the glory, the joys, the amusements of the purpose of creation come back to him. This is why it is necessary that you come before all, and after you have come forward, you shall make a turn in our will, and shall go behind everyone. You shall place them as though on your lap, and shall bring them all into our womb. And we, in seeing them covered with your acts done in our will, shall welcome them with more love, and shall feel more disposed to bind our will with those of creatures, so that it may return to its full dominion. Therefore, courage. The little ones get lost in the crowd, and this is why it is necessary that you come forward, in order to fulfill the mission of your office in our will. In our will, the little ones have no thoughts for themselves, nor their own things, but everything in common with the Celestial Father. Therefore, just as everyone enjoys the sun, as they are all inundated by its light, because it was created by God for the good of all, in the same way, all enjoy the use of the acts done by the little daughter of our will, that more than sun dart over all, so that the sun of the eternal volition may rise again with that purpose for which all generations were created. Therefore, do not get lost in the crowd of your miseries, of your abjection, of self-reflections, but think only about your office of little one of our will, and be attentive on fulfilling your mission. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 16, Part 9. Fiat.